9 a.m., March 24th. The emergency summons went out the morning after Alexia's fourth-round implosion. WTA executives gathering at Hard Rock Stadium were expecting a routine review of tournament figures. What they discovered was a financial catastrophe that rocked the entire organization. The Miami Open was in the red by a staggering $4.7 million. Sponsors were demanding their money back, broadcast partners were threatening to rip up their contracts. The spreadsheet being passed around placed the blame squarely on a 20-year-old Filipina who didn't make the deep run they had bet on. Within hours, the search for a scapegoat began, and the official statement left the tennis world speechless. The WTA wasn't blaming its own disastrous scheduling. It wasn't blaming the rain delays that paralyzed the tournament, but Alex, the very player their entire campaign was built on. March 24th, 2026. In the Hard Rock Stadium conference room, the air was thick with the tension of financial ruin. The 2026 Miami Open was supposed to shatter profitability records. In the weeks before, ticket sales had skyrocketed by 48%. The surge was driven by Filipino fans, and her merchandise made up 57% of all sales, more than every other player combined. Broadcast ratings across the Filipino diaspora had demolished all previous records. But when the final numbers were tallied, the truth was devastating. The tournament had forecast $47.2 million in revenue from ticket sales and sponsor deals. The actual figure, $42.5 million, a $4.7 million shortfall that sent tremors through the WTA. How does a sold-out event hemorrhage cash? The devil was in the details. The ticket surge was real, but it was focused only on Aya's matches. After her fourth-round loss, premium tickets for later rounds went unsold. Sessions heavily promoted around a potential Aya run saw their secondary market value collapse. Sponsors who paid top dollar for courtside visibility during her matches saw their investment evaporate. Broadcast partners who'd booked primetime slots for her were left with nothing but dead air. The insurance claims were the final nail in the coffin, as key sponsors had purchased performance policies on her. They were betting her popularity would carry them through to at least the semi-finals. When she bowed out in the fourth round, those policies triggered payouts that devoured tournament profits. The final count was a disaster. The 2026 Miami Open was the first in a decade to lose money, and the WTA needed a fall guy. Just hours after the numbers came in, a leaked document ignited a firestorm in the tennis world. The internal memo, marked confidential for WTA leadership, was a brutal autopsy of the financial failure. The over-reliance on a single player's marketability, the memo stated, created an unsustainable revenue model. When that player failed to advance, the tournament's financial structure collapsed. The memo went on to shred the marketing decision to build everything around Aya. It claimed the organization put too many eggs in one basket, but the most damning line came later. While Alexandra Aya's popularity is undeniable, her inability to deliver deep tournament runs represents a systemic risk to events relying on her going forward. Marketing must account for the volatility of a player who is yet to consistently meet financial projections. The memo made no mention of the 37 matches cancelled due to rain. It didn't mention the scheduling chaos that left players waiting for hours on end. It didn't mention the $4.7 million shortfall from deals negotiated before Aya's stardom exploded. Instead, it blamed a 20-year-old whose only crime was playing tennis. When the leak hit, the backlash was instant. Filipino fans flooded social media asking why the WTA was scapegoating Aya for its own mistakes. Tennis analysts pointed out the tournament still grossed $42.5 million. By any measure, it was hardly a catastrophe. Players began to speak up first in whispers, then publicly. Maybe the WTA should examine its own business model before trashing a kid who just wants to play. One veteran player posted anonymously, but the narrative was already set. Alex Eala was taking the fall for the Miami Open's financial collapse. In the following days, a different story began to emerge from the numbers. The memo ignored the numbers. The numbers told the truth. First, the downpour. The Miami Open's first week was savaged by record-breaking storms. On March 15th, a total washout scrapped every qualifier and practice session. By March 18th, it was a full shutdown, 37 matches across both tours cancelled. Stars like Venus Williams and Stefanos Tsitsipas were left stranded before the day was called off. The financial hit from the cancellations topped $2 million in lost revenue. Insurance covered some of the damage, but not all of it. Next, the sponsorship contracts. Payouts were triggered based on Isa's pre-tournament rank of number 29, but by the opening match, she'd fallen to number 51 as old points expired. The deals were obsolete. Third, broadcast partners paid a premium for Isa's matches, assuming she'd make at least the quarterfinals. Her fourth-round exit left a 23% viewership gap. Broadcasters demanded compensation for the $4.7 million shortfall. This wasn't Isa's fault. It was the failure of an organization whose entire financial plan depended on one player. They never planned for the reality that a 20-year-old might not go deep in every event. The WTA is blaming Isa for their own myopia. An economist noted, "You don't base a $47 million model on one person. That's not on Isa. That's business 101. When the internal blame game leaked, the blowback was instant. The tennis world ignited. Filipino fans who flew across the globe were enraged. Social media erupted with support for Isa and condemnation of the WTA. They built their whole campaign around her, then blamed her when it failed. One fan posted, "That's not leadership. That's cowardice." Another added, "Isa sold out arenas. She broke ticket sites. She outsold everyone else combined, and the WTA says she didn't win enough. Unbelievable." Players started talking first off the record, then openly. Jessica Pegula, who felt the Isa effect in their 2025 semi-final, spoke up. "It's not fair to put that on Alex. She's a phenomenal player. She pulls huge crowds and was pure class all week. The business end isn't her job." Coco, Gauff, her friend, was even blunter. "Alex is 20, she's fighting her heart out. If their financial model failed, that's their problem, not hers." Even WTA founder Billie Jean King offered a sharp, measured rebuke. "I started the WTA to give women a stage to shine, not to be scapegoats for corporate failure," her statement read. "Alexia is the sport's future. We need to lift her up, not tear her down." The backlash forced the WTA into damage control, walking back the memo's language. "The WTA is fully committed to Alexandra and all our athletes," the new statement claimed. The internal memo was part of a broader review and not meant to target any player. "We regret the misunderstanding, but the harm was done." The world saw the WTA's true colors. The bond between the organization and its athletes, already frayed from years of disputes, had been shattered. Throughout the firestorm, Alexia remained composed. She had flown out of Miami right after her loss to Muchova, heading home to the Philippines before the clay court swing. The news broke while she was at her family's home. Her team released a short statement. "Alex is focused on her recovery and the upcoming clay season. She has no comment on things beyond her control." But sources said the organization's betrayal stung deeply. Not because the blame was fair, she knew it wasn't, but because she had poured her soul into the tournament. She had survived a 3-hour marathon against Laura Siegemund, battling through delays and tactics that would crush others. She had gutted out a 10-second set against Magdalinette with the poise of a champion. She had walked onto center court to face Karolina Muchova, the 13th seed, a fierce opponent. She battled to the bitter end. Her take from Miami: 120 ranking points, $15,720, and a projected slide to number 45, a dip, not a dive. But there would be no celebration, and no credit for the millions of new fans she'd single-handedly drawn to the game. Instead, the WTA was making her the fall guy for their own financial disaster. The Inquirer had dubbed her a certified rock star after her Indian Wells performance. No matter where she played, a massive roaring crowd made it feel like a home court advantage. But that home apparently wasn't the WTA boardroom. With the Miami firestorm in her rearview mirror, Alexia locked her sights on the clay season. Her first stop would be the WTA 500 Upper Austria Ladies Linz Open, kicking off April 6th. After that, she would head to Madrid for the first WTA 1000 clay event, followed by Rome, and finally Roland Garros. Clay was her territory. It's where she forged her trademark patience, footwork, and tactical brilliance at the Rafa Nadal Academy. And clay was where she planned to finally break the Czech curse that had plagued her entire career. Her record against Czech players was a grim 0-12, with Karolina Muchova being the latest to defeat her. But clay gives you something hard courts don't: time to craft points, to play the angles, to find a way. Time Ya's tennis IQ could use to finally solve the puzzle. As one analyst said, the tour moves on fast. Ya was already focused on the clay, while the WTA was left cleaning up their own mess in Miami, preparing for Linz. Ya considered the lessons from the last few weeks. "I'm grateful to be thrown into these high-pressure moments on big stages," she'd said after her win over Linette. "But being back in the 4th round feels just like last year, same but different." She had grown. She was smarter. She went toe-to-toe with the best in the world and proved she belonged. So when she steps onto the clay in Linz and Madrid, in Rome, in Paris, she'll carry the certainty that no matter what the WTA claims, no matter what their balance sheets say, she's not the problem. She's the future. Then the WTA did something that sent shockwaves through the tennis world. A leaked memo revealed the organization was blaming Alexia for the Miami Open's $4.7 million financial hole, conveniently ignoring the 37 matches cancelled due to rain, the sponsorship deals based on fantasy numbers, and the fact that Ya sold more tickets than the rest of the players combined. The blowback was immediate and fierce. Fans revolted, players spoke out. The legendary Billie Jean King even weighed in, reminding the tour that you don't use athletes as scapegoats for business failures. Through it all, Ya didn't say a word. She left Miami with 120 points, $15,720 in prize money, and a projected ranking of number 45. She turned her gaze to the clay season, to Linz, to Madrid, to the French Open. The WTA could point fingers, but the fans knew the truth. The players knew the truth, and Alexia, at 20 years old, knew that she was not the one to blame. She's the future. Was the WTA wrong to pin the Miami Open's failure on Yan? Drop your take in the comments, subscribe to Court Legacy for daily WTA news, match analysis, and the stories behind the scores, because at Court Legacy every day is match point.